Hey everyone, this is the ShutInBakas. We're back for Higurashi When They Cry review of Go and Sotsu. I know I said I'd do this back in the episode 15 of Sotsu review, but it's been a bit. I've been trying to gather my thoughts on the show and whether or not I'm happy with the ending or not. And after some thinking and, some deliberating, I actually think it was a decent ending. Probably a bit different than what I was expecting. And that's very obvious from all the stuff that people have been drawing parallels between this series and Umineko, which is also When They Cry. Apparently, because Higurashi When They Cry and Umineko When They Cry are done by the same person, it's just a different setting. It's hard to explain because I haven't even watched Umineko yet, so you'll have to forgive me if my knowledge on that regard is extremely lacking. I'll get onto it eventually, but from what I've heard, the anime adaptation of Umineko is pretty terrible. I'm not certain about that, don't blame me about that, but that's just what I've heard. Anyway, let's get into it. So, Gold pretty much starts off with the usual, okay, she's stuck in the loop again, or in this case it's Rika, because Rika's the main character. And basically, everything's happening again, and it pretended like it was a remake, when it wasn't, making people a bit upset, who wanted to get into the series for the first time. And, yeah, it wasn't their greatest move, to be honest with you, but, I guess it was good for marketing, to get people back into it. But in a way it wasn't, because people who are, not wanting to watch the remake and would have liked a sequel more, wouldn't have known until people would have come out and said, yeah, I don't understand what's happening anymore. They're talking about something like this and that, and they'll be like, wait, that's what happened in the last season, what? Stuff like that. So, basically, Goal is just very much a retelling of the first season for the most part, with different scenes and lots of changes to the parts. But everything is essentially the same. And at the very end, we find out that Satoko is the reason why everything had been going wrong in that part of the series, because Satoko had got the power of the witch, or whatever you want to call it. The power of, reincarnating into different worlds. I don't really know what they call the power. The power of other worlder, I don't know. That aside, Satoko now has it because she doesn't want to do homework. Now, I know that's an extremely, bland way of, showing what that was trying to portray, but in a way, it was really that simple, but I do understand the fact that this is kind of a god's influence on the mind. Giving a child, godly powers is a terrible idea, because they can just do whatever the hell they want. And someone actually explained that pretty well, somewhere. I'm not sure where it was, but essentially, the idea was Satoko got her powers from the god Iua, and Iua seems to be the main part from which Hanyu came from. It's very weird, they don't really explain who she is or, anything. She didn't even have a name until Satoko showed up, so that's interesting. And it all kind of ended off with, okay, Satoko is now the bad guy. What's Sotsu about? So Sotsu is another retelling of Go, which Go was a retelling of the original series. Actually, yeah, let's break this down. So Sotsu's a retelling of Go, Go's a retelling of Kai, Kai's a retelling of the original series. The show is just retelling the same show over and over again, isn't it? I guess that's what Groundhog Day is all about, huh? Anyway, so basically, it's been a very interesting season. I was very concerned about how they were going to end it, because they were getting creeping, very close around episode 13/14. How are they going to wrap this up in a good way? How are they going to manage it in, a way that will satisfy the fans? For the most part, the Japanese fans seemed to enjoy the ending, but most of the Western audience didn't. That seems to be the general diagnosis, I guess that's the word. Because overall, I follow a lot of Japanese, Higurashi fans on Twitter and Instagram and stuff like that, and they all seemed pretty happy about it, but I'm guessing that's because they're a lot more into the series. But overall, the Western fanbase was saying it's the worst ending they've seen, it ruined the pacing of the show, It doesn't even feel like it's Higurashi anymore. That's what I was hearing. And while I do understand those claims, it's just the fact that this series was never particularly, I guess... it's hard to explain why I kind of accept this is how it ended, because this show was never about realism in the first place. This show was exaggerated, like, world building, like, powers. Like, for goodness sake, this girl can travel through time as far back as 1983 or whatever it was, and nobody seems to bat an eye at that's supernatural. And the fact that there's a god, there's the Hinamizawa syndrome. I guess people really wanted more of that sort of stuff, like the more expansion on the Hinamizawa syndrome and the government behind it and all that stuff that the main series didn't really exaggerate on. They kind of said, okay, this happened, we'll leave it up to you to, look into it yourself. Maybe they explained it more in the light novel. Wouldn't be surprised, since, light novels usually have a lot more inner dialogue, so that would make sense. But overall, it was a bit sad that they ended it the way they did, because everyone kind of called it the Dragon Ball ending of Higurashi or Naruto, because there's the parallels between come back to the village, Rika, no way. Yes. that was the sort of meme going on at the time, and while I get it, it was quite generic shonen at the end there. I feel like it's setting up for something. I feel like there's actually going to be a new season or some part, because at this point Iua has to come back, maybe with a vengeance. Maybe a different force comes back and Rika and Satoko have to fight against the odds once again, or some bullcrap, I don't know. But it's a very weird one, because at the very end, they recited this part, which ties directly into Umineko. I can't recite it because I don't remember what they said exactly, but it was the train scene where I've got that thumbnail for the first episode 15 review. And that's the thumbnail. They said, wherever they are, when someone cries, that sort of crap. When they cry. And the only part I got out of that was, they said the thing. They said the name. There it is. But people actually looked back and saw that in the Umineko manga light novels. I think it might have been in the anime, I'm not sure. But they saw that and said, okay, so this is an Umineko prequel, isn't it? Perhaps. A lot of some of the comments on that video were Umineko next, people hoping for an Umineko remake. I think that's likely to happen, because Umineko does now seem to tie into Higurashi quite a lot. These characters, from what I've seen, Umineko's designs are very similar, like the Freda girl. I'm not sure what the names of the characters are, I'm just guessing from memory. The Freda girl and that blonde girl, they seem to have a buddy-buddy relationship. They also said the when they cry line. So people are just kind of drawing the parallel of maybe these two are like Rika and Satoko but in a different world, or maybe they're older versions of them. It's really hard to tell, because obviously, Higurashi, in good old Higurashi fashion, they don't explain much. And I can't really say for sure if I like how they combined Umineko into it. I feel like the show really was better without this part. I think if they just did a plain vanilla remake of the entire series, people wouldn't be angry. But the fact that they changed so much of the, I guess, lore and the parts that made Higurashi what it was, it kind of ruined it for people, and I do understand that. I for the most part, only liked this because I got to see more of my favourite characters. Not because the story was interesting or anything, just mainly because it was, I got to see Higurashi again. Because it is one of my favourite series, don't get me wrong, it's just that when they kind of butcher it, it's kind of like that meme of, look at what they did to my boy. It's that sort of a thing. But I can't really go out and say this was bad. I can't say it was a terrible sequel or anything, but I can't say it was good either. It was just kind of fine line of, up here is where it would have been good, down here is where it was bottom. It was, like a roller coaster dangling in between all the time, and it was very strange to watch. And, yeah, overall, that's pretty much all I've got to say about it. It's nothing groundbreaking, obviously. I mean, it changed a lot of the original series, and that's probably why people are upset. You know, it changed the themes, the characters. Satoko became very different, and I'm still a wee bit questioning my theory, because back before episode 15 came out, I made a video on episode 13 or 14 saying what my guess was for the newest parts, and that was basically there's two Satakos in her right now. There's the witch Satoko and there's the original Satoko. And at the very end, when Satoko was in the village by herself after having seen Rika off, Satoko decides, okay, I'm gonna let the Satoko deal with it from now on. So she flips a switch and flips her fingers, and she basically just turns into normal Satoko. And I guess it's kind of like how Rika can go from her childish Nipa self to, you know, that monotone mentally 100-year-old woman who is very emotionally worn out. And I feel like it's kind of like that. But in a way, it kind of felt like she flicked herself off and let the normal Satoko take over. It's hard to explain. Like, maybe I'm just making shit up, and maybe she actually just didn't change. She just changed personality like Rika does, where Rika doesn't turn off and on her personality more or less and make the other part of her completely doesn't know what's happening. Whereas the Satoko didn't really seem to know what was happening. She's like, oh, okay, I guess I'm here now, great. It's really hard to explain because, once again, they didn't explain anything. They just kind of left it up to, your guess is as good as ours. And, yeah, I don't like it when shows do that. Especially when, in Higurashi, the whole point of the show is uncovering the mystery. When you don't uncover the mystery, it's quite a, downer, really. The whole show, the whole original series was, I want to figure out what's happening in this show. What is causing this Hinamizawa syndrome? Why is everyone going crazy? We all found that out. Completely, no pandering or anything. It was just given to us what was happening. This season really didn't care. It just kind of said, this happened, deal with it. Look forward to an Umineko remake, idiots. That's kind of what it said. And even then, I would say an Umineko remake wouldn't give us answers or closure to anything that happened in the series. So the only real thing I can say is, I'm expecting there to be a movie. That's my guess. That is my unofficial, not very educated guess of there will be a movie where Iwa will come back and, I guess, try and take over again. Maybe a different god shows up, and Satoko and Rika have to, do something about it, because they left way too much open there. It was kind of like, okay, so you're telling me these characters who are mentally scarred and have such deep issues now, they're just going to go on and live their lives? That's what's happened? That's just what's going to happen? They're just going to go off and live their lives after resolving almost nothing? It's quite a sad turn of events. Anyway, that's the hope anyway. A movie, give us one, I'll take it. But I want to hear what you guys think. Tell me in the comments, what did you think about the ending of Sotsu, and what you think could come next? Obviously everyone's going towards an Umineko remake, or redo, because this technically was a remake as well, but it was a redo instead. And yeah, it's just kind of like a questionable thing as to what's going to happen now. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Hit the like button if you liked the video. Leave me, don't dislike the video, don't do it. Leave me a comment, obviously, tell me what you thought. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, ring the bell button if you want to know when we're uploading. Follow me on Twitter, @ShutInBakas, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.